What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Reviews by Ryan channel, and a very happy Tuesday to all of you. It is Tuesday, May 9th, and I hope you all are doing well wherever you're at in the world at the time you find this video. Thanks for those who checked in. I'm happy to say that I'm just about fully recovered from the flu. Mine is still dealing with some ear popping that I'm having as the fluid in my ear clears out. It was an awful health situation last week. As I was recording the Oshi reaction last week, I did find out shortly after that I actually recorded that reaction with the flu, and that's why I had 102-degree temperature. So thanks for hanging in there. There was no top 10 update last week because of that, but I am back now, and I'm mostly back to normal, minus dealing with some of the congestion. So, as you just saw, there has been a little bit of a shakeup in my top 10, and I wanted to take a few moments here to comment about that, and if I feel anything has changed with the show that I have been proclaiming #1 the entire season. So I want to go ahead and start with that. Does Mobile Suit Gundam, the Witch from Mercury, being in the #1 spot mean that, just like everybody else in the community, it seems, the buzz for the show has died for me? Hell fucking no. Excuse my language. Let's not play ourselves. Let's not be brand new here. There's been absolutely zero change in my mindset on the Oshi series. I believe from an entertainment standpoint that it's probably one of the best shows so far I've ever watched in this particular genre. That said, the Mobile Suit Gundam episode that we just had, episode 17, and the complete and utter disaster that unfolded between Myonin and Soletta, it just had to take the top spot. I've been really staying on the edge the last week or two because I knew with Ghoul coming back and with Prospera and Myonin really talking and Myonin really realizing how brainwashed Suletta actually is and everything that was getting ready to unfold with the different companies and families and everyone getting ready to make their start shooting their shots, especially like Shadik and everybody. I knew we were getting to a point that the momentum was getting ready to shift. The entire environment was getting ready to shift. It was getting ready to shift for the worse, but for the better, for the purposes of the story. And episode 17, anyone who's watching The Witch from Mercury right now will tell you this last episode was fucking awful. It was so bad. I feel awful for every single kid that has now had to deal with these unfortunate circumstances. And so many people are victims in this. Prospera is a victim to her own rage and anger for what Myonin's dad did to her entire family and to all the people that she used to work with and love, and the fact that she had no choice but to basically, if there was any way of preserving her daughter, was turning her into a Gundam. She is a victim of her own anger and rage. Suletta is literally a tool. She's literally a tool, and it's so fucking sad seeing how far gone she is. And you even saw it for those who watched the episode, so major spoiler. Well, I've already spoiled everything basically at this point, but you already saw that Myonin tried to wait until the final moment to see if she was going to take that really decisive action in this last episode to once and for all deal with Suletta and completely remove the girl that she clearly loves and clearly cares about deeply, to remove her from fighting, from Gundams, from everything. And she tried to give one last thing by asking one more question to see just how far Suletta would go, and Suletta literally would throw it all away for Prospera, would throw it all away if her mother said it. And so now that that's all out there, we saw what unfolded. We saw how Prospera and Myonin kind of reached their own agreement, which we know Prospera is not going to hold to. And then, of course, Ghoul and Myonin themselves reached their own internal agreement, which basically made it so that Ghoul would take back over being her fiance. It would forcefully remove Suletta from the equation, and it would give the Ariel to Ghoul. And I think that every single thing that transpired in this last episode was the worst possible decision for Myonin to make, for Ghoul to make, and the only person who's going to come out on top of all this is going to end up being Prospera. Because if you think that Prospera is just going to let Suletta not be present within the grand scheme of things, you have not been paying attention to Prospera's personality at any point during this show. Prospera absolutely still has a use for Suletta, and Suletta's going to come back to her now because the poor girl's broken. Everyone who she didn't expect to betray her has betrayed her in this episode, and the only one that she thinks has not betrayed her up to this point will have been her mother. So this episode, this past week, was just absolutely insane. It's been a heartbreak that we've been anticipating for 16 episodes now. We've been anticipating this revelation since the prologue. And now that we're here, my biggest thing is for Myonin. I get why she did what she did, but I think she made the wrong choice. And I think that, unfortunately, the chain of events that's going to be set in motion now may be too much for anyone to overcome. And we are probably on our way towards another devastating conclusion to a Gundam series. So with everything that transpired, it was in my personal opinion that despite the fact that I feel Oshi is very fresh for its genre, it's been really engaging. I love the show to death, and it's still going to end up being my number one at the end of the season. Like I said, unless a complete catastrophe happens, this is me giving flowers where flowers are due, and I do believe that Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury was the best episode this past week. Now, putting that aside, there was 2 other change-ups that happened. You'll notice that 2 shows have disappeared from my top 10, one which may come as disappointment to some. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. The one was My Home Hero, and the other one was Konosuba. And Konosuba, My Home Hero, will probably see it fluctuate in the last place here and there for the rest of the season, but I do feel that with the change up in my top order, and then also 2 other shows that, as you saw, I wanted to recognize for their efforts this season, it's just kind of one of those things where for My Home Hero, it's going to just kind of be riding right at the tail end, and we'll see how it goes by the time it ends. It's still a really, really great show, and it's important that I tell you all that my top 12 or 13 shows are all 8 out of 10s and above. So we're talking really high ratings for all these shows right now. It's been a fantastic season for most of the shows I'm watching, but there can only be 10 shows for the top 10, and unfortunately, I did decide after really thinking this week that there needed to be a little bit of shift up for the shows that are actually, in my opinion, really showing top 10 caliber. So, Konosuba, before I talk about the two that made it into the list, Konosuba. I love Konosuba. Megumin is my favorite character in the entire series. And I want to be very clear that I am greatly enjoying Megumin's side anime season. I think that it's been really well put together based on the source, and from what I'm hearing, they haven't really deviated much from what's in the source. The issue that I'm having actually has nothing to do with Megumin. It has nothing to do with Union. It has nothing to do with any of the characters. It just has to do with the fact that it just doesn't hit the same when the whole main cast isn't together. I've been feeling that something was missing the entirety of the season. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Was it just the punchlines weren't the same? Was it just that I don't care about Megumin as much as I thought I did? And I realize it's not any of that. It's just that we've gotten so accustomed to our main cast of Aqua and everybody's shenanigans. And then the movie that came out was literally a 20 out of 10 presentation. That movie just set the bar so high for the Konosuba series that for me, it's just kind of one of those situations where the same jokes, if they were used with the whole cast, would be 10 out of 10, 20 out of 10 jokes that are more like 7 or 8 out of 10 jokes watching it with, it being, obviously still having Union and Megumin, but not having all of our cast of characters that really make this show special together. And so, unfortunately, I really had to think long and hard if this was still a top 10 show for me going into this week. And again, we'll probably see Konosuba's pop back up in the top 10 in the very near future. But I just decided for this particular week's ratings, with how all the rest of my shows are doing right now, it just didn't make the cut. And so unfortunately, it did get ousted from the top 10. So I don't want there to be many misunderstandings. I still love the Konosuba series just as much as I did when the very first episode dropped for this show. But right now, the shows that are in my top 10, I just feel are doing a bit better with keeping me engaged. So that out of the way, the two shows that did make it into the top 10. And one of these shows was a show that I got to tell you guys, I didn't think I was going to put it in my top 10, but it's there now. And that is one of them being The Dangers in My Heart. So watching Anna and watching Ichikawa, especially watching him with his very creative, all over the place mindset of wanting to murder this girl while being a middle schooler, going through all of these whatever visions was turning him on. I have to admit, I am very surprised I enjoy this show as much as I enjoy this show. Watching their friendship into what we know is going to be a relationship grow, and understanding that they are middle schoolers, and understanding that there are certain things that middle schoolers just do that just are all over the place, like the one horn bag that I keep letting his name slip my mind, that's a part of his class. There are a lot of antics that middle schoolers do that obviously now as adults we understand just were really cringeworthy and aren't worth it. And for Ichikawa's particular situation, the first episode was incredibly a cringe fest. But what we've seen unfold as the episodes have gone on has been a lot of growth, maturing, people kind of having a good circle, particularly with Anna. I think that she has a good circle. It's just that sometimes you might think with certain things they say they might come off a little snobby, but it looks like she actually has a good circle around her. And the fact that, slowly but surely, entities are starting to pick up on the fact that something actually exists between these two, that they kind of are starting to share a bond that, even they themselves didn't even really start realizing until, I would say, the last 2 episodes. But I really love the natural progression that has existed between Anna and Ichikawa. I think that their friendship has really been on great display. And this past episode with him protecting her in the library, and making sure that she didn't get caught with the candy or the food, because if she did, she probably would get kicked out, never to be allowed back in. And seeing everything that happened, there's a layer of complexity to this show that you would overlook if you got all caught up on just the cringe aspect of it, especially with Anna. Anna comes off as this really airheaded, very lighthearted person, but she's actually very prideful about the things she does, and she's very in tune to being a disappointment to other people, her family, her friends, to the people that she cares and loves and values. And watching her grow and seeing that she's more than, just what they've given off on the front layer of her personality, it's been incredibly captivating to watch. And this past episode was just absolutely stunning. So I really enjoyed this show. I really am enjoying this show. And I had to really sit the last couple of weeks to see, do I think that the show deserved to finally be recognized in my top 10? And I did decide this week that it does deserve it after this past episode. And so it is now in my top 10. And then outside of that, the other show that came in right in my 10th spot, and a show that obviously I have a lot of enjoyment and passion about, is Birdie Wing, the golf show. I've mentioned the show here and there a little bit when I was talking about the shows I was going to be reacting to and watching, but I can't put enough emphasis on the fact that this absolute ridiculous mafia golf show should not be as good as it actually is. But I've loved watching the revelations of our two main girls, especially as they've identified who their parents actually were, and her and our girl Eve trying to get out of the mafia and trying to get the girl who wants her dead off her tail once and for all. And watching the story really play out, I've actually been really captivated into this season, and I expected to be captivated. What I was questioning was it going to be captivating enough that I would actually put it up with the big dogs, the top 10, and I decided this week that it does deserve a spot. Even if it's right at the end, it does deserve a spot. So with that said, The Dangers in My Heart and Birdie Wing Season 2 are the two additions to my top 10, and I'm interested in knowing what you guys think. Well, how are the animes that you're watching this season going? What do you think about the shows that I put in my top 10? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Definitely feel free to leave your dialogue in the comments. So that's all I wanted to say. So I'm going to go ahead and check out. I actually need to take some medicine for some last bit of congestion that I have. So thanks for watching. I'll look forward to seeing all of you guys tomorrow for the next episode of Oshi. And until that reaction video, catch you later.